But certainly, let's begin. And defense certainly reared its ugly head when it came to that 14th inning. The captain with Alcides Escobar up there for Kansas City to lead off to the bottom of the 14th inning, and it was at E5, came back to bite the Mets.
Yeah, we talked about the biggest thing about this Royals team is they put the ball in play, and they put the ball in play very hard off the captain's foot, wasn't able to make the play, and all it took was a little bit of a stutter, couldn't make the throw across the diamond, pulls Duda off the bag, and that got the ball rolling for Kansas City.
Want to let everybody know we cannot show video until Fox signs off, and when they do, we will show many things that happened in tonight's game. So network restrictions, once that comes to an end, we will get you more of the video. And certainly one of the big storylines in this game came down to a battle of the bullpens, and the former Met, Chris Young, gave Ned Yost 3 tremendous innings out of the Kansas City bullpen.
Well, when you talk about the back end of the bullpen, you don't think of Chris Young being the guy that holds the Mets at bay. You talk about Wade Davis. You saw Matson tonight, and Herrera did a tremendous job. All three of those guys with the power arms. You look at 96 and up with the fastball. Chris Young comes in blowing 90-mile-an-hour heat and keeping these Met hitters off balance, pitching inside, outside, mixing up his pitches. A great job with his slider. His slider moving almost as a changeup. It kind of kept backing up all night long, but he kept throwing it in fastball situations, getting a lot of swings and misses out of the Mets hitter.
Out to Kansas City we go. Gary, Keith, and Ron joining us from outside Kauffman Stadium. And guys, two things we spoke about on our pregame broadcast. Number one, back end of the Royals bullpen and the Royals bullpen in general, and also defense. And certainly both were keys in the outcome of tonight's game.
I mean, defense front and center, right? Both good and bad. The Royals made a half a dozen terrific defensive plays early in this game. The Mets got a couple of great defensive plays by Flores, and then the one in the 11th inning by Granderson that saved John Neese. But ultimately, the game came down to one key error on each side, each one made, ironically enough, by a Gold Glove winner. Hosmer's error in the 8th that allowed the Mets to go in front before the home run by Gordon tied it against Familia in the 9th, and then ultimately David Wright's error that opened the door in the 14th.
Well, it was really a great ball game. What a terrific game, 14 innings. And we talked prior to the game about the defense of Kansas City and how solid they were. And ironically, as Gary noted, a big costly error by the two-time Gold Glover, Eric Hosmer, late in the ball game that gave the Mets the lead. The home run by Gordon to tie the game up off Familia. The first runs he's given up in the playoffs, first blown save. And then going into extra innings, it became a battle of the bullpens. John Neese, spectacular. Bartolo Colon, spectacular, an unearned run. So just a terrific, terrific ball game.
Both starters, Matt Harvey and Edison Volquez, got pulled after 6 innings with relatively low pitch counts, which put a lot of pressure on the bullpens as we headed toward extra innings. Excuse me. The Royals bullpen, which we talked about ad nauseum before the game because they've been so good, they go 8 innings, 1 unearned run.
The only issue that you have, though, with the Kansas City bullpen, Herrera threw 35 pitches. Davis pitched a couple of innings, but they were outstanding. And they're the reason that the Kansas City Royals got the win tonight. But really, they had to have a plan before this game with Chris Young because the Mets started for Game 4 through a simulated game to get ready for Game 4. Chris Young had to know before the game that if it went extra innings, he was going to be the guy who had to go extra innings out of the pen, and he did a fantastic job. You always say, Gary, he always pitches 5 shutout innings. This time it just was at the end of the game.
We have seen this so many times because Chris Young did this as a Met, and he's done it against the Mets. What is it, Keith, that makes this guy so incredibly hard to hit? You see the radar readings. He was throwing actually 90 tonight, which is hard for him, but up in the zone, gets outs, down in the zone, gets out. He's amazing.
Well, he knows how to pitch, and I'm sure Ronnie has a great admiration for him. I think it was important to note in the broadcast, if you were watching the Fox broadcast, what A-Rod had to say about Chris Young. 6'10", throwing way up high, and what made perfect sense to me, which I think is the most important thing, is that A-Rod said that you cannot read the spin on his slider. And he's got a good little downward tilt slider, and he knows how to elevate up in the strike zone and get down low. He just did a terrific job. Absolutely phenomenal job.
Now, we only saw the Kansas City closer, Wade Davis, for 1 inning. We thought maybe he'd go 2, but I would have to think that after running Herrera out there for, as mentioned, 35 pitches, Ned Yost figured he had to save Davis for another day, so he threw only the 18 pitches, but how devastating was he striking out the side?
That cutter, probably the best cutter in baseball right now, maybe with Kenley Jansen of the Dodgers. And I think the interesting thing about this game I'll take from it is that it's David Wright's first World Series game. And I remember him in Chicago saying, World Series, going to the World Series. And just a tough start in the 14th inning, making that error.
You know, this is the 5th World Series the Mets have played in. They've lost Game 1 in every World Series they've ever played in. But I would have to think, much like in 2000 when the Mets lost a 12-inning game to the Yankees, blowing a lead in the 9th inning in Game 1, this one's got to be an extra special, difficult game to get past when you're the losing team in Game 1.
Well, whenever you play extra inning ball games and go deep into the night, it's always the team that the next day has the lift and the push from the tough victory, and the other team's got to really pick themselves up by their bootstraps and really go out there and battle. So we'll see. This Met team has never died all year. This is going to be the most important game of this season right now. Tomorrow's Game 2 coming out tomorrow, and having DeGrom on the hill has got to be a big plus for this ball club. And so it should be we always say this was going to be a great series. It's already off to a great start.
Well, certainly the Mets had every reason to feel good with a 1-run lead going to the 9th with their ace closer on the mound. J. Reese Familia has been money in the bank. Couldn't quite seal the deal tonight, giving up that monster home run to Alex Gordon, Gary, and that sent us deeper into the night.
Yes, indeed. It is the first time, by the way, the Mets have trailed in a series in this postseason.